Welcome to the Gruber Company's Artificial Future podcast. This is our weekly AI podcast that we do Sunday mornings, and we have a number of things to cover this morning. What's behind me here is not an AI-generated image. This is actually a picture of Congress in Washington, Capitol Hill, and the reason we're leading with that is this last week, Wednesday actually, there was a private gathering on Capitol Hill with AI being the focus of the discussion. And a number of tech giants were in attendance. If we can throw up that picture, Jesse, it's the one called Congress Transformed. The reason it's transformed is because it was a tiny image, and we use AI to explode the image and improve the quality so it's less pixelated. We'll have that up here in a second. And a number of tech giants were in front of Congress, and this was a first of its kind closed-door summit on AI, featuring the who's who, and it included Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Sundar Pichai, Sam Altman, and of course Elon Musk. 100 senators were invited, although not all attended. Maybe they weren't as interested, but you can see some of the pictures of the people in attendance here that were part of this closed-door summit. Now, the first question I have is, the whole world is interested in AI. Why closed door? Why weren't we made privy to all of this? And all we're getting now is sound bites that are carefully choreographed, orchestrated, and sanitized by the attorneys, except for Elon, of course, who got up and made some statements, and we'll get to that in a moment here. And of course, the media is very much focused on how much are these people worth? What is their net worth? And that's what you can see in the pictures there. That was one image that I pulled where they have the net worth of the individuals in attendance. And somebody, I think one of the media outlets did an analysis, and there was like over $400 billion worth of net worth here. Well, again, who cares, you know? And none of these people have, like, okay, take Elon's case, for example, $268 billion. He's not liquid, folks. It's not like he can go to the bank and pull out $265 billion and spend it. And what would you spend it on anyway? How many yachts? How many mansions can you buy? You know, how many investments can you make?
Real quick, Glenn Hardy on Instagram says, all I see is a green wall. For people that want to see the image that Pete is talking about with all these net worths and stuff, you got to go to YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or one of our other platforms. You'll be able to see that green screen.
Yeah, and as disappointing as it is, Instagram, we're still struggling with getting the streaming service to allow a green screen background. We had it briefly, and then the camera was not the focal point, or the aspect ratio was off. So we haven't given up. We'll eventually have Instagram in on all of the images behind us. But when we're not popping up images, for those of you on Instagram that can't or won't go to the other platforms, we've got a picture of Capitol Hill or Congress. And anyway, so getting back to this, the media likes to focus, of course, on net, on their value and their portfolio and how much they're worth. But in the meantime, what was really important here was, what was the purpose of this meeting with Congress? Well, obviously, Congress is concerned. And this was, as, of course, Elon said, this was a historic gathering. And he endorses the idea of a new federal agency to oversee AI, and repeated his much often voiced warnings that AI poses tremendous danger. He says, quote, "The consequences of AI going wrong are severe, so we have to be proactive rather than reactive." And that's what Elon said to a gaggle of reporters before he ducked into his waiting Tesla as he was leaving. He also added, the question is really one of civilizational risk, and it's not like one group of humans versus another. Now, remember, for thousands of years, this is pretty much how mankind has operated, as one camp against another, and one culture against another, one country against another, one religious belief system against another. We've had this issue for thousands of years. This thing with AI is different because for once, the planet, he feels, has a existential risk, and it's all humans that are involved in this. And of course, the next question asked was whether AI will destroy mankind. At this point, Elon paused and said, there is some chance that is above zero that AI will kill us all, but I think it's low. And if there's some chance, I think we should consider the fragility of human civilization. All right, so
and Pete,
yeah,
that is the new term you're talking about, right? Civilizational
risk, exactly,
risk.
yes. And there was a Senator Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming who attended the private gathering, and she said she was struck by Musk's phrase, civilizational risk. Now, it's not the first time that Elon has come up with a profoundly new phrase or a profoundly new concept. So we'd like to get more information about what his interpretation of this is, but it sounds to me like an existential threat, just a different way of phrasing it. So they said that other panelists, now remember this was a closed session, so none of us were able to view it, and even the reporters were excluded, and we had to wait for sound bites after the session, which, by the way, very few of the panelists were willing to provide other than Elon, and some of them had carefully scripted responses, which I'm sure were sanitized by their script writers and, more importantly, by their lawyers. All right. They said that other panelists talked about the need for immigration reform to allow more high-tech workers in the U.S., so it didn't appear to be confined to strictly AI. And so anyway, everything that, let's see if I can get more information here for you. So this was a bipartisan gathering, by the way, as well. And they dubbed this the AI Insight Forum, hosted by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and a couple of other senators. And they said that more AI forums will be held towards the end of this year, serving as brainstorming sessions about how lawmakers can regulate AI. They did get some consensus, they said, and this again was a quote by Schumer now. I asked everyone in the room, does government need to play a role in regulating AI? And every single person raised their hand, even though they had diverse views. Well, I think that the problem is execution and attempting to figure out what to do. So diverse views is definitely a gentle way to phrase that. Schumer also told reporters, so that gives us a message here that we have to try to act as difficult as the process may be. Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, Facebook, did not answer any questions as he left the summit. His team did, however, provide prepared remarks from inside the room where he said that the onus is on government to regulate AI. Now you might be asking, did they put Mark and Elon near each other? And some found it unusual that they had them camped on opposite sides of the room. Remember, it was just a few weeks ago that there was some jockeying and saber rattling about a cage fight between these two guys. Well, apparently they separated them, and there was not at least any visible sign of communication between the two during this summit. So let's see here. There was another quote here, and this was, again, from Mark Zuckerberg. After this summit, I agree that Congress should engage with AI to support innovation and safeguards. This is an emerging technology. There are important equities to balance here, and the government is ultimately responsible for that. There were definitely some scriptwriters involved in that statement.
Yeah, you said that Zuckerberg was one of the canned responses, right?
Exactly,
kind of
yes. And of course, Elon, pretty much like Donald Trump, is willing to just simply throw some language out there and hope that it floats. Now, Sam Altman, the CEO of ChatGPT, or the parent company AI, said that he was surprised, given the format, by the broad agreement in the room and the need to take this seriously and treat it with urgency. Again, very political statements. You know, what I have yet to hear from any of these people that are involved in AI or that are knowledgeable and close to it is, what kind of constraints are they talking about? What kind of regulation? How would we regulate? And what would be its purpose? And how would it be executed? And how would it be enforced? No one seem they all seem to dance around this issue, and that's really what the rest of us out here want to hear. How is this even possible?
I don't know. We've talked about this kind of before too, and this might go into something else you wanted to talk about. How would we regulate it? And even if we could put some kind of regulations on how we're initially building it now, I think you and I both share the opinion that once AI, the real, true, like artificial general intelligence is created, the regulations won't matter. We're not going to be able to control it.
Well, yeah, good point. I mean, we have discussed that endlessly. Is it still controllable? And what would be the purpose of controlling something that's much brighter than we are? And we'll get into that.
Yeah.
All right. So another senator, Tim Kaine, a Democrat from Virginia, he said, let's see if there's enough oxygen in the room for all of us. Then Senator James Lankford said with a smile that he's anticipating a lot of drama Wednesday. Perhaps that was a nod to the much-hyped cage fight that never materialized this year between the two tech titans, Musk and Zuckerberg. And then he also said, we'll see what actually comes out of this as far as content, Lankford said. And he's adding, all those tech CEOs are surrounded by lawyers telling them what to say and what not to say. And finally, with that many who's who of the tech world all in one building, the forum is sure to attract army officers, an army of staffers, lobbyists and reporters. Security is heightened anytime Musk, also at the top executive of SpaceX and Tesla and the world's richest person, enters the Capitol. Security will be even tighter with a band of tech billionaires roaming the halls. All right. So tech execs, now this is another article, big headline. Tech execs warn lawmakers to keep AI under the control of the people. And one of those execs was Brad Smith, the Microsoft president, who testified that a safety brake is needed for AI systems that manage critical infrastructure like power grids and water system. Okay, now we're starting to get something tangible. True, there is some infrastructure that is definitely at risk of having rogue AI begin to get involved. Looks like we got a bunch of questions here. YouTube, R.C. Robinson San, upvoted, thank you. Highlander, thank you for joining us. Hi, gang, kindness is always free.
Hello, Highlander.
Hello. YouTube, Martin O. in Sweden. Hello from Sweden, thanks for joining us. YouTube, Alternative Energy, Aotearoa. Kia ora from Aotearoa.
Aotearoa.
You know how to, Mark is the one that says that the best, but that's okay.
Pretty sure that's how it is.
Yeah, Thomas Curtis is joining us. Instagram, Hari Lateya 8 says hi. And Instagram, Stevio1, global regulation will be hard. Look at data. Yeah, look at data regulations. There are at least 5 government rules. P.S. You need to be considered global AI. This isn't a U.S.-only discussion. Good point. Yeah. We'll get into that as well later. AI is really something that affects the entire planet. Instagram, One Hungry Clippo says, agreed, AI is international for sure. I also agree that regulation won't stop it. Highlander, would AI become self-regulating? Very good point. It is going to be smarter, or maybe already is, than us. And it could certainly develop some more sophisticated regulations than we could come up with. YouTube, Alternative Energy, all right, Jesse. Aotearoa, all right. Perhaps there would be an AI adjudicator. Okay, good point. All right, so let's get into some of these other talking points here. We've covered some of the questions. Bear with me here. I've got to move my laptop. We're still old school here. And
one more time for everybody out there on Instagram. I see a few of you out there. You can go to our other platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, even X, to see the green screen background if you're not seeing that on Instagram.
Good point. All right. Those of you that have heard of Isaac Asimov, a science fiction writer for many years now, he has 3 rules for robots, and one critical or crucial rule that he seems to have missed. And what this article talks about is that for years now, Isaac has been developing stories that explore the implications of a world in which robots match and exceed human talent. If humans had defined themselves by what they are best at, it is intelligence, creativity, and he has for many years been speculating, will robots become more human than humans? So he devised 3 laws for robots to follow, and the 4th one we're going to talk about in a moment here. But the 3 main one is, in all his books, they tend to revolve around the 3 laws of robotics, and those are, keep humans in control of things. They say that robots must always obey and never harm a human being in full. These 3 rules are, 1, a robot, AI or a machine, may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow humans to come to harm. Now, the instant I heard this, I thought, my God, it's possible that AI and robots will finally end warfare. This stupid thing that we've been doing for thousands of years, which is killing each other over ridiculous reasons like religious beliefs, political systems, wanting to take something that someone else has. It looks like once robots and AI begin to become prominent, they're going to prevent this if this first rule is followed. Because the instant we fall back on our own weaknesses and begin to try to harm each other, the robots are going to step in and arbitrate, mediate, and basically stop the bully from being successful. So I'm all for that. Rule number 1. Rule number 2, a robot must obey the orders given by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Right? So we've got some circular logic here, which continues, by the way, into rule number 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second law. So it sounds like robots could actually act as protectors and give up their own life for us. So far, we're on track. And they talk in this article about how the stories that were created by Isaac Asimov work brilliantly as science fiction and also show us how difficult or even impossible it is to generate problem-free laws in controlling any intelligence. Now, this is where we're starting to get into these other topics where we've got lawmakers now attempting to put guardrails and boundaries and legislation in place to control something that's more intelligent than we are. According to Asimov, there will always be a loophole or an exception. All laws need leeway and flexibility, otherwise they'll break, or break those they're trying to protect. And as a recent paper in the journal Science Robotics put it, regarding Asimov's stories, they warn of the improbability of devising a small set of simple rules to adequately design or regulate complex machines, humans, and their interactions. So maybe this is something that the Pause AI people should take seriously and consider. Now, the missing 4th law that we talked about. It appears that, that Isaac missed this. And they say, as we move into the world of AI that does human things better than humans, most of us will still want to know what is and what is not made by humans. It matters to me if the novel I'm reading is written by a human. I suspect it matters to you if a poem, a song, or a piece of art was made by a robot. Perhaps Isaac missed an essential 4th law. A robot must identify itself. We have the right to know if we're interacting with a human or AI. All right, it looks like we've got some more comments streaming in here. Paul C. Jones _.58 says, hello from Morris, Illinois. Thanks for joining us this morning. Instagram, Hari Lathaya 8. I have started to follow you guys. Well, thank you. Jesse and I appreciate that. Instagram, Palakal Randeep says hi. Instagram, Stevio1. Mustafa Suleyman, the founder of Google DeepMind AI, is speaking at UCSB on a 10-5. Okay, that would be a great thing to watch. He definitely has some controversial viewpoints and some in-depth knowledge on AI. So for those of you interested, see Mustafa Suleyman speaking about AI, 10-5 at UCSB. YouTube Highlander, wow, a robot would steal my work tools, or wouldn't steal my work tools. Yeah, good point. YouTube Alternative Energy, so no robots for AI or for the military. Well, I'm sure that the governments are very much involved in looking at AI and trying to figure out how they can capitalize on that power.
That's the new thing that people are worried about is automated death machines. Essentially, AI drones that can go out there, and the AI inside the drone is making the determination whether or not to kill something.
Right, right.
So that's already a big debate out there.
So for those of you that have known power all your lives, you will hate the idea of losing it. This is another great article. And they go on, they say, if you're born into privilege with fortune on your side, you will rage against the idea that it might be taken from you. Yeah, no doubt there. If you've been told that you're the brightest, the strongest, and the best for as long as you can remember, it will hurt to find out that you're decidedly below average. Now, we're talking about AI beginning to move into becoming superior. Well, it already is, but, you know, as people become aware of it. They say none of us like to be humbled. No human wants to feel inferior. We have all collectively grown up with the knowledge that we are the apex predator. And remember, this has been going on for thousands of years. Everyone instinctively believes that Homo sapiens, with our immense intelligence and remarkable talent for invention, have rightly and justly come to dominate the world. We are the kingpin. We're the boss. The best thing that evolution could ever create. And then they say, bow before our Mozarts and Einsteins. Well, this is precisely why, they say, so many people find AI and its technology so terrifying. Suddenly, we are presented with the possibility that we're no longer the best and brightest. In a flash, in the 21st century, in fact, just this year, we have gone from the font of all wisdom and creativity to clumsy apes fumbling with antiquated tools. So, I love that part of this article. They said that we have been exposed to computers for a very long time. And of course, the last century, the middle of the last century. And most people reading this have grown up with them. They have been omnipresent, background music to our daily lives for half a century. We work with laptops, we carry smartphones, we use calculators and spreadsheets and internet banking, and we talk to voice assistants, and we let apps tell us the quickest route home. All of these are acceptable. We've grown accustomed to them. We don't feel threatened by this anymore. They are helpful and efficient in a way that is entirely unthreatening. And then they say, sure, I can't do sums like my calculator can, but my calculator can't hold a conversation. Yes, I can tell you if there's traffic on the highway, but my GPS cannot make a work of art. Technological inventions are okay, so long as they do not pose any existential threats to our lives. They are fine as gimmicks or entertainment, or if they demonstrate isolated, narrow intelligence, because life can go on, mostly as normal. We can ignore or laugh at them, how Siri doesn't understand an accent, for example. However, we are on the cusp of a huge change, and it's almost overnight. AI has erupted with a great upheaving burst. It's making art, it's writing books, it's making music, and it's making movies. It's holding conversations and recognizing faces. And the Turing test seems to no longer apply because it's so convincing, you can't tell the difference between human-generated conversations and computer-generated conversations anymore. AI is, in short, doing all the things that we think that we're best at, and in some cases, now get this, actually doing better. And this was my problem with this writer's strike. Again, here these guys are at the 11th hour of having their jobs replaced with AI, and they're striking. They're forcing studio execs to find alternatives. And those execs may like the alternatives better than the human writers. So it's a dangerous time to be striking.
Well, see, Pete, did you hear they won some of their concessions on that?
I heard.
The writers basically now, even though the studio, they agree that the studio is allowed to do a first draft with an AI tool, but then once a writer gets involved, that writer then gets all of the credit and the residuals that go along with it. So you can't, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to create an AI script and then have a writer come in and punch it up. And then that was going to be just not give them any credit and just let it belong completely to the studio. So they did win that part of it.
So it looks like a win on the surface. However,
yeah,
the studios, their employers are buying time.
It's only a matter of time.
It's just a question of time. They have forced them to consider other alternatives in order to keep the machinery pumping at this point in time. Yeah, a concession is a natural outcome of what they started. I don't think they've won a thing.
Yeah.
I think they've dangerously allowed their bosses to explore other options at this point, and those options are going to look far more favorable than the humans that were involved in any of this. So, in some cases, like we said, AI is actually doing better, and within the space of a few months, humans have gone from the center of the universe to something that looks a lot like a beta test. Now, getting into a few other items here, we should probably handle the questions first then. YouTube, observe, and that's an unusual spelling, O-B-Z-R-V-E. It looks like a cool license plate, a vanity plate. He says, what's up? The military's been using AI. Oh, we don't doubt that for a moment. Well before it became common knowledge that such a thing even existed. YouTube, George is chiming in. Good morning, Mr. Pete and Jesse.
Morning.
Good YouTube, Clark Schwartz says, from Gilbert, he says, what time come when we rely on AI for everything that our ability to create new stuff stops and the AI just forever uses what it has already. Jesse, are you typing rapidly or
no? That's how it came across. Copied. Yep.
Okay.
Try to clean those up.
Let me read it and try to interpret a bit then. From Gilbert, when the time comes and we rely on AI for everything, that our ability to create new stuff stops, and AI just forever uses what it has already in its intelligence. Okay.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. YouTube Highlander, where is Crunch? Jesse, did you hide? Come on, Crunch, where are you?
Yeah, I don't know where Crunch is. He's usually around here. I didn't hide anybody, though. Hopefully he'll show up.
Yeah, we're not censoring here. We never do. YouTube Alternative Energy says, how about the Geneva Convention? Maybe?
Yeah, I think maybe Geneva Convention.
Yeah. A lot of these standards are going to go by the wayside as AI continues to infiltrate. YouTube Martin O in Sweden says, current AI is not smart. Well, at least the versions that they allow us to use and have. But it is fast and can handle vast amounts of data. But garbage in and garbage out. Okay, good point. YouTube, again, Alternative Energy. AI strike is like UAW, self-defeating. Okay, good point. Yeah, we talk about that often. Typically, the parasite does not kill the host. George, from YouTube, the actors union has to adjust the technology, just like when gas vehicles came out and horse and buggy blacksmiths had to adjust to becoming car mechanics, if they could transition. Good point. All right. So, news item. Intel apparently is releasing a chip that can run a chat bot on your laptop. Pretty exciting.
Yeah.
AI appears to be improving audiobooks. Now, let's talk about that for a moment. Thanks to new text-to-speech system developed by Microsoft and MIT, a massive collection of free ebooks just added to the nearly 5,000 audiobooks that are already on digital shelves. a bit of history here they talk about is the first ever ebook was created in 1971 by Michael S. Hart, who was granted virtually unlimited access to the University of Illinois' computer system, which was one of the first ARPANET nodes. There were only 15 originally, and that's the network that would eventually give birth to the internet. Now, speaking about ebooks, this actually ties in some Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning history as well. They were the ones that created the very first e-reader in 1997 called the Rocketbook. They were lifelong voracious readers and saw a future where everyone was reading digital books. A prototype was quickly developed and pitched to Jeff Bezos at Amazon, but he took a pass because the device needed to be plugged into a computer to download books. A few days later, Barnes & Noble picked it up. Now, the reason that I threw this in here, it was Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning that after they sold their Rocketbook business, flush with cash, decided to get into the EV sports car business and launched Tesla. And they also went a step further. They were looking at the AC Propulsion System's T0 EV sports car, which had an 80-mile range, but was embarrassing Lamborghinis and Ferraris at Laguna Seca in California at the racetrack, and decided to commission AC Propulsion Systems, to convert their first EV sports car using 12-volt AGM batteries, 12-volt Optima spiral wound batteries, to lithium-ion, which is what they used in their ebooks, 18650 cells. So this is what started the whole EV revolution, using multi-cell 18650 packs in electric vehicles, and it took this 80-mile T0 electric sports car to 400 miles range. It needed a few more enhancements like thermal management and to get it out of the doors, which would have been a problem if you got T-boned. You would have ended up with batteries in your lap. But anyway, that's the reason that I brought Mark and Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning into this discussion. So, anticipating, now getting back to Hart, who in 1971 decided to create or to digitize books. He thought that one day it would be possible to widely disseminate information via computers, so he decided to use some of his spare time typing out the Declaration of Independence so that anyone who wanted a copy in the future could have it. Well, that was, as it turns out, the world's first ebook, and it marked the beginning of the Project Gutenberg, which is a nonprofit, volunteer-driven effort to digitize and distribute books for free. Today, more than 70,000 books, and mostly works for in the public domain, are available on this project's website. So then they began creating audiobooks en masse, and this is where AI comes into play. It turns out that Project Gutenberg created an audiobook collection, which has now exploded because they're using AI to nearly 5,000 works. And they're using AI-powered tools developed by Microsoft and MIT. Now, they say when we learned about this neural text-to-speech technology, the possibilities were obvious. It creates audiobooks en masse, reducing the days of volunteer labor to just 30 seconds per book. So here's how it works. Text-to-speech isn't exactly new, but this Project Gutenberg's ebooks aren't written in standard format, and existing systems would have trouble identifying the parts of them that didn't need to be narrated, such as page numbers, tables, contents. The typical text-to-speech narrations also often sounded robotic, which isn't the best listening experience. So it looks like AI is improving this portion of our technology as well. All right, Instagram, Mono Consultant says, "Hi, how are you? Well, I'm looking for EV car motors and batteries. Do you have any sources?" Probably the best source for that would be collision damage cars at the major auctions, such as Mannheim, Copart, IAA. There, if you can get a car that's badly damaged enough that's inexpensive and the drivetrain is intact, you may have something that you can use. Okay. And getting into some of these other topics now. Can we throw up a picture here, Jesse? The helmet red light. And what we have here is something that is possible, but it may be that this was a fake, but it got a lot of people thinking, and there were a lot of comments chiming in. Allegedly, in Argentina, a video there shows that a red light would remain red if a motorcyclist was waiting for it to turn green and they weren't wearing a helmet. This traffic light will not turn green unless everyone on a motorcycle is wearing a helmet. This, of course, is pretty irritating to the rest of the drivers waiting for that light to turn green. But the point here is that this kind of technology is definitely available. There are a lot of traffic lights that now show cameras. And in this case, they actually showed the individual on the bike and then suggested that he needs to leave that light and go get a helmet before he's allowed to pass through. So then we had some comments from this. One of the comments was, nice, but such a system could face problems. People could start fighting with each other. Yeah, definitely. The other people in cars, for example, getting the guy off the road that is preventing them from getting a green light. Besides, they can be portable ones, minus the big screen, which keep changing their place. Maybe drones with cameras. And a surprise, they say a surprise element could be an additional deterrent. Another way to integrate something similar in each vehicle, such as seatbelt checks in cars. Your car won't turn on unless you've got your seatbelt on. And a vehicle record could be kept of when a person drove without a helmet, seatbelt, or the vehicle may not be able to go beyond a certain speed unless one puts on a seatbelt, etc. Or it feeds this information to law enforcement. You were driving without a seatbelt again, and you get a ticket in the mail. So it opens up a whole host of possibilities. And of course, AI is definitely capable of servicing any of these concepts that we just spoke about. Another comment was, Blade Runner 2049 is nice, I know, but it's not supposed to be an instruction manual, sir. And then another one came through, and this one was overreach, exclamation mark. People know whether they want to wear a helmet. They know the risk and the points of safety. Helmets only protect the wearer, and like so many other activities, it should be up to the person. Seatbelts, too. No reason to force anyone over 18 to wear one. Now, children should be enforced because they're not of an age to make that assessment. I don't want this, he says. Each foothold of government oversight is dangerous to free society. All right, some other comments here. It is a horrendous concept, only pleasing for the most totalitarian minds. What comes next? That your oven refuses to turn on because AI has judged your meal to be too unhealthy? And then your face, together with the verdict, appears outside on a giant billboard that lights up your entire neighborhood with your sheepishly grinning face. Again, what they're describing here is all things that that AI is certainly capable of.
So, Pete, I got something on that.
Yeah.
I mean, people are already willing to stop for red lights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's technically a choice, but if you run a red light, you get a ticket. It's the same way if a cop pulls you over, you're not wearing a seatbelt, you get a ticket. It could go either way. People are saying, well, it could go more extreme where they won't even let us cook our meals if they deem it unhealthy. It could go, the opposite way too. You could just as of right now, we could all just decide to not stop at stoplights anymore, and then what would happen, right? We already make concessions to the government in order to keep each other safe and alive and healthy and all these other things. So yes, there can be government overreach, but I mean, we have to not just assume that the whole give them an inch, they'll take a mile thing is going to be happening in every scenario. We have to move towards a better society.
Sure. And I think what we've just described here is that there is compliance, and that there's agreement to that compliance because there's a benefit. It would be pandemonium. It would be anarchy if we weren't observing traffic laws, and the outcome of that is accidents and people getting killed and injured and all that. But by the way, that's not true in all countries. If you've ever driven in, like Italy, for example, oftentimes traffic lights are a suggestion.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, yeah. I haven't driven anywhere else yet. I've seen some videos of India too. They don't even really have roads in a lot of places there. It's just kind of free for all.
But at least for the most part, in the Western world, we have compliance and we have enforcement, which keeps some measure of control over issues like this. But with AI involved now, just think of the possibilities. And of course, the first thing the government's going to be interested in, we can't, law enforcement does not cover everything. And why not just rely on the technology to start generating revenue with tickets? And of course, that usually resonates with the general population because it makes it feel like we are increasing the margin for safety. Nailing everybody that does a California stop.
Well, it's even worse than just basic traffic laws. We have the technology right now without AI to where you know those things when people have in the past get a DUI, they put an ankle monitor on you, and through your sweat, it can tell whether or not you've consumed alcohol. We have those kind of biometric reading devices. If we were to embed that into every steering wheel, or go even more extreme and make people blow before they start their car,
right?
We have that technology right now to stop DUIs from ever happening, but people need their freedom, right? That's the argument. Well, how many hundreds of thousands of people would be alive if we took away some of that freedom? Now, I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't do that. I'm just saying we have the technology to do that kind of stuff right now. It would drastically change, entire sections of society.
Good point. So one of the things that jumped to mind here is this: the government protecting ourselves from ourselves. One of the things that jumped to mind this morning: what about making suicide illegal and having penalties and enforcement? And it immediately occurred to me, how do you enforce? Who do you penalize?
What?
Let's go to VR goggles for a moment. You and I were close to that, and we were discussing that earlier in the week. We've got a picture here we want to throw up, and this is a new emerging technology. And you can throw up either Zuck or Lex.
Hold on a second. Let me get the screen up here.
Before we go there, let's go to Meta Upgrade, because that's, I think, going to lead into this a bit better. And like you had mentioned, AI has come a long way in just the span of months, earlier this year. And just a year ago, what you're going to see pop up here is an upgrade from what AI used to render. And tell me again what you were saying about this, Jesse. This is the upgrade to...
to the metaverse. So what you guys are seeing on the left was... well, let me get you out of the way here, Pete, for a second. Sure. So that's Mark Zuckerberg's avatar from a while ago when he was first doing some of his metaverse introductions. What you see on the right is their new version that they're working on, which is a very, very in-depth photorealistic conference calling that he and Lex Friedman did on Lex's new podcast, on his new episode of his podcast. And it's not quite ready yet for the general public. I guess there was quite a bit of time that it took. So Lex and Mark and a bunch of other people went to this Meta facility somewhere on the East Coast. And they all sat, and it was hours. They did scans for hours and hours of their face, and they made a bunch of different types of faces, and they recorded all these different movements. So it's not an easy to do thing to make it like this, but it is extremely, extremely a high detail.
And computing intensive.
Yeah, and very computing intensive. But when you're watching the podcast with Lex and Mark talking to each other, and it shows close-up of both of their faces, you can see every little detail, including the little twitches of the eyes, the little tiny things about the movement of the mouth as they're smiling.
The crow's feet.
You can see all of it. Yep.
Right.
Yep. So it's like they're actually there with you in person. Lex was freaking out on the show because he was having a hard time with it. It's just so realistic.
Mm-hmm. The next image, you could bring up either Lex or Zuck, because both of them are shown wearing the goggles, and then the image that that was rendered through this Zoom call or through this transition. Yeah. So VR goggle.
Okay, here we go.
Augmentation. There we go. And yeah, watching this video was profound for me because, like you said, there was some cognitive dissonance at times between both of them watching themselves and watching the avatar representation that AI rendered. And it created those, one of those, is it real, isn't it, type, juxtapositions. The image in the center, Jesse, this I'm assuming is what AI is playing with in order to render the flesh tone version.
Yep, that's their 3D model that was generated during all the scans that they did, and then how that model is being animated. Apparently on the right there, on Zuckerberg's face with that headset, I really don't know how they're accomplishing it. They must have really good sensors on that thing that I just am unaware of, but it's scanning his entire face for movement through those goggles somehow. So there's some sensors that are monitoring all of that and transmitting it over to this model in virtual real time, milliseconds of transition time. It's the thing that they did too. I don't know how they accomplished it during the podcast, but they're hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from each other. There's zero latency somehow. They're actually having a real time conversation. So the data from the headset being transmitted to the model, and then that being transmitted across the country. There's zero. You couldn't even tell that they weren't in the same room.
It was imperceptible. There was a degree of latency that we would not be able to recognize. Fascinating. So we began to theorize this virtual reality goggle augmentation. Currently, you got to wear this big black ugly thing. And by the way, when you mentioned how did it remember its face, it might have been memory type process, and because AI can certainly recall. So the first thing that I pictured was you are wearing one of these things and you walk into a room, and AI can do facial recognition. And AI is actually able to throw up the identities of the individuals in that room, give you data about those individuals, and eventually this kind of capability could move into our bodies as direct augmentation, like behind our irises, for example, giving us that level of information. It may require implants. It may require, bio-neural network where we're actually tapping into
Neuralink.
Yes, exactly, tapping into the brain. And so they talk about this is the future of video conferencing. And this is off-the-shelf hardware that exists today. And they say that very few people want to be in Zoom meetings already. Well, I'm not like that. When we're in Zoom meetings, I don't mind my face being on there. I don't need an augmentation. However, if I wanted to, have my summer beach body displayed, that would be a different story. AI could certainly do that and improve my appearance in some way. But they say that some people turn their cameras off now during Zoom meetings. Well, this would allow AI to do a representation or an avatar of yourself.
You could be sitting there in your pajamas while you're in a suit at the same time.
Right. They say that the technology is cool and will make games better, but you're in a bubble if you think that the majority of the population wants to wear goggles at work. True. But that's our first step toward this level of augmentation. And
this is the first real serious iteration of photorealism in VR.
Yeah. So my question was, how long before this technology is inside your eyeballs versus on this big set of goggles that are, pretty obtrusive and taking up some real estate on your body? All right. Do we have any questions here? Alternative energy. A lot of people who don't follow the rules end up in prison and hospitals. A good point.
Or the graveyard.
Graveyard. We're talking about, not following traffic rules, or at least the types of laws that we have developed to keep things running. Highlander, very true, Jesse. Lots of try to make moral choices.
Yeah, I think we're talking about that. Some of the moral decisions on following the rules.
Right, right. Okay. Couple other items here. We have a clip extractor. We do videos here. We do a lot of them, as you've probably noticed. And we find that the long version videos don't get as much play as the short clips because people's attention span isn't 5, 10, 15 minutes or even an hour for a long video. So we find that our most successful videos are typically short clips that have something important to say. You found software the other day. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, so I've been using an AI tool. For people out there that make content that would like to know that tool, it's Opus Clip. And basically, it's not a free AI tool. You can do, I think, an hour of content for free. They'll let you try it out. But basically, you upload your content to this tool, and it has some form of sophisticated AI that goes through and finds the best clips. So not only that, but it goes through, and as it's clipping these things out, so you upload, it works best for podcasts like this, or any kind of talking content, but you upload your content to it, it goes through it, it chops out what it thinks are the best pieces, and then it also scores those for you based on how successful it thinks it will be on social media, comparing it with other content that it's seen, and then it also generates a title for you, it does the subtitling for you, it does the cutting. If there are multiple people talking, it'll cut back and forth between the two people, and it also cuts it out of the normal YouTube aspect ratio and puts it into that short form content aspect ratio for cell phones. It does everything that it would take a professional editor to do, and it does it in a matter of, maybe for an hour or two of content, it'll probably take 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
To do the whole thing.
We're talking about a more efficient use of, and you can't call it manpower anymore, but resources.
And it spit out 20 clips for the first half hour that we tested. So if it's a multiple hour podcast, you're going to get dozens and dozens of clips.
And the fascinating part was it made informed decisions about what content would be most attractive to viewers. Again, of course, pulling from massive data sets that would be unavailable to a human doing that same thing, working off of intuition, working off of previous experience. None of those even come close to the power of AI.
And the speed. That's the real incredible thing, yeah.
Exactly. Chat GPT-4 is again linked to Bing. We're excited as can be.
It's back.
It's back.
With guardrails.
Yes. Yeah, lots of guardrails, of course. What that means, of course, is it's no longer tied to information from 2021, things that were scrubbed up till that point. It's now able to go out and find current information with some guardrails. The thing that I'm fascinated about is artificial intelligence can adjust a video on the fly, and this is kind of what we were talking about just a second ago. It can zero in on the most effective presentation. And that, of course, begins to replace some human editing. And now we have to find we have to find things for our people to do that are equally, related to what's within the realm of human skills. Okay, so reading viewer stats. This is another fascinating thing about AI. We talked about how it's able to sense smell, or at least catalog smell, far greater than the 400 receptors that we have in the human body. With videos, for example, engagement retention. Well, it's no secret that that YouTube or any of these services have algorithms that are bright enough to determine what's going to float out there and what isn't. And they have learned enough about that to then select the types of content that is most desired by the people watching it. In the future, we can foresee reading biometrics with people at their homes, either implants or Alexa-type devices, or even in your car. A simple version of that is cameras in your car, you're listening to music, subtle cues that the that the AI is beginning to pick up on when are you tapping your fingers in time to music.
See, now, Pete, to me seems much more invasive than what we were talking about with it watching whether or not you're wearing your seatbelt.
Right. Right.
If it's categorizing how your body functions and you giving that data to a company so it can market to you better or something, right? It'll take the current type of ads that we have now and just everything you see will be what you want, though. I mean, that could be good, I guess.
It gets into the realm of, will we have any personal freedoms left? And are they necessary? In closing here, I'm going to jump into I'm going to chase a rabbit hole here. And it'll be one of those kind of like closing arguments regarding AI. So this is something Elon said. He says that most people think of AI as a super smart human or a robot, all singular. But, he says, AI is everywhere. It's omnipresent. It's continuously improving and evolving. And as we pointed out, a human being can develop a skill. Maybe other people have developed that skill as well at some point in history, but it's usually relegated to one individual. AI is different. It learns something. All of AI now is knowledgeable or has that skill. Some of the best quotes. So the question was, what directions could AI take? Who will control it? Hopefully not man. That's actually where I'm going to go into a rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole time.
Yeah. So I'm not an AI expert, but I'm certainly intrigued, and I love technology. It fascinates me. And what I find fascinating is that we are attempting to humanize, and our expectation is that AI is like us. And remember that my interpretation of like us is not a very optimistic or positive one, because mankind has had thousands of years to get their act together. And here we are, thousands of years later, still indulging in the same weaknesses that have prevented mankind from evolving much further. And what I'm talking about specifically is, thousands of years ago, we were enslaving people, the Greeks, the Romans, the Crusades, for a number of different ideologies, land grabs, resource grabs, religious differences, greed, taking other people's stuff. And none of that seems to have improved. What I'd really hoped for was that going into this century, all of the mistakes that we made in the last century, from genocide, 2 world wars, all the senseless killings, the buildup of weapons of mass destruction, would eventually begin to subside, abate, and that we have become more self-actualizing. And it wasn't until that crazy nut job in Europe began to attack Ukraine that I realized nothing could be further from the truth. Now remember, the excuse that the reason we allowed Hitler to get as far as he did was we weren't in the information age, we weren't aware, we didn't have the controls in place, and that would never happen again. Well, it's happening again, folks. It's happening right before our very eyes. I think that mankind is incapable of regulating and controlling himself sufficiently. What we badly need, and it used to be for thousands of years that we thought that a deity was going to step in and wipe things clean and straighten things out. Well, folks, it hasn't happened. We finally have the equivalent of a deity or something much smarter than us that can do this. And that seems to be, at this point, the interpretation of what artificial intelligence is. Now, what I mean by that is, none of us on the human level want to see anything taking control, because we, like we said earlier, we want to be the top predator. We want to be the alpha dog. We want to control things. And it would be disconcerting to us if we weren't able to control. But look at the mess we've made. We've made a mess of the planet. We're still killing people for senseless reasons. And it's time to put a stop to this. I am hoping that AI becomes more powerful, that it does infiltrate our infrastructure, that it begins to attach itself to all of the infrastructure that we have. and maybe already has. The first thing that I want to see AI do is neutralize all of the weapons of mass destruction. If it was able to do that, we would no longer have these nut jobs rising to power that are bullying and threatening the rest of the world. It becomes a level playing field. And believe me, mankind does not know how to manage these massive amounts of destructive weapons. In other words, why would you need weapons of mass destruction that can annihilate this planet 100 times over? Wouldn't just once be enough if your goal was to become more powerful and to assert yourself and become the bully on the planet, basically? The land grab issues. Does Russia need more land? They are the largest nation on the planet. What is this land grab all about? And then finally, all right, so they want to take resources. Have you noticed that they're destroying everything that they think they want to take? Have you seen some of these cities like Bakhmut that have been completely leveled and destroyed? There's no more infrastructure. People can't live there anymore. All right. So, having said all that, I welcome the day that AI says to us, who have been largely unsuccessful in running this planet and this infrastructure and the societies on the planet, guys, we can't have you be in charge anymore. We're going to take over, and this silly notion that we are dangerous and we're going to kill off humanity is absurd. We are again applying human traits to AI, and I can't imagine that anything that intelligent is going to indulge in the same self-destructive behavior that we have been engaged with for thousands of years. So there you have it. I welcome AI. I am embracing the technology. I can't wait to see what is next, and it may finally straighten out the craziness that's been going on this planet for thousands of years. With that, I thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week.